morning. I'm honored to welcome you to the service of St. Michael's University School Service of Remembrance. This service is a cornerstone of the school and speaks to the importance of respect and remembrance across cultures, races, and generations. In light of this, I would like to extend a special welcome to Lieutenant Colonel Philip Sherwin, retired from the 5th BC Royal Regiment of the Canadian Artillery, and a St. Michael's boy from 1965 to 1969. As we move through this morning's ceremony, for ease of viewing, the program and hymns will be projected on the screen over the stage. Please stand for the singing of O Canada.
July 20th, 1918. I do not know how to start this letter. The circumstances are different from any under which I ever wrote before. I am not to post it, but will leave it in my pocket. If anything happens to me, someone perhaps will post it. We are going over the top this afternoon, and only God in heaven knows who will come out of it alive. Oh, how I love you all. And as I sit here waiting, I wonder what you are doing at home. I must not do that. It is hard enough sitting, waiting. We may move at any minute. 100 years ago, Sergeant Major James Milne penned that letter on the front lines of World War I. This morning we'll hear more words from those who fought in the same war, including our own Captain Harvey. The letters are old, but don't be tempted to relegate their contents to the past. Lately, our national papers have been taking account again of those who fell in Afghanistan, and the even more recent deaths of those who returned in body, but clearly were no longer whole. This day is about all their stories across time, their very human experiences in the trenches and on the battlefields. It is not about sides or victories or heroics. This is no celebration. It is an act of remembrance. And we need to remember. We need to remember so that we are fully aware of the price that was paid and is still being paid. Because in the busyness of our daily lives, we so easily forget the frightening cost of the way we run this part of our collective life. And by remembering, we cannot so easily overlook our own calling to build a more compassionate and just society. Let us begin our reflections by gathering ourselves together in a moment of prayer, using the words that were so well known to the old boys of the school who served and died. Please join me if you will. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
At times of great significance, communities often turn to words of assurance from their longest-standing traditions. The first of two scripture readings is from the Gospel of Matthew, and in this passage, Jesus challenges how we understand the structure of our world by upending our assumptions about what the future holds. Hear those words from Matthew, chapter 5, verses 1 through 10. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven."
Our desire for the end of violent conflict is ancient. Some 2,700 years ago, the author of this passage from Micah longed for a day when weapons of war would be remolded into tools for harvest, when every person would have food, drink, and shelter without any worry that these necessities of life would be taken away. The author shares a vision of people collectively finding a higher purpose and acting upon it. Micah chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. In the days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised up above the hills. People shall stream to it, and many nations shall come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk his paths." Then the people shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. But they shall all sit under their own vines and under their own fig trees, and no one shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken. Thanks be to God.
What is your name?
Joseph Benjamin Stratford.
In what town, township, or parish were you born?
Brantford, Ontario.
What is the name of your next of kin?
My mother is Mrs. Elizabeth Stratford.
What is your date of birth?
June 13th, 1889. I am 25.
What is your trade or calling?
Gentleman.
Married?
No.
Willing to be vaccinated?
Yes.
Have you served in any active militia?
Duffer and Rifles.
Height?
5'11".
Complexion?
Fair.
Eyes?
Green.
Hair?
Black.
Poison gas was first used by the Greeks during the Wars of the Peloponnese. The Germans improved the chemistry and reintroduced it on April 22, 1915, around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. 160 tons of chlorine gas came in a 3-meter-high fog, greenish-yellow, drifting over the front. The Canadians were among the first to breathe it in, but they made a stand and held the line. There were no gas masks. Out of 5,000 dead, 2,000 were Canadian. They found they could continue fighting by tying cloth soaked in their own urine over their faces, and the reputation of the Canadian soared.
Ma, just didn't our Johnny Canucks show them how to fight? They made the greatest stand that any army has ever made in the history of the world, and the English people are commencing to realize and appreciate what Canada is doing for them. Yesterday, we rode with our company into an old gent's estate and asked him if we could ride our men through his deer park and over his fields. He said certainly not, cutting up his meadows and frightening the deer. But when he found out we were Canadians, my dear boy, you may ride your men through my house if you want to. Go any place you'd like. The place is yours.
Things are not quite as I imagined them. It's very quiet, especially in the daytime. And at night, the rifles crack away, and there's a few shells and bombs now and again. We are at present in barns, and we get beds made of poles and chicken wire, and when we get blankets, it's not too cold. It's just as well we do sleep a little off the ground because the rats are so numerous here. This part of the country's infested. One night, I woke up with a great big fella on my pillow, and my boots and various other parts of my equipment soon sent him flying. It's just as bad in the trenches. If you're on guard, if they run up and down your legs or up and down the parapets chasing one another.
There would be 200 men sleeping on the straw probably soured by previous occupants, plus the rats and the lice. Sounds like Napoleon's march on Moscow. What's changed? The fact that modern armies now had their men live and fight in holes in the ground? That the generals thought their men should devolve to the level of killer rodents, waiting for favorable winds for poison gas? At the beginning of the 20th century, the generals drove the world backwards, shrinking the horizon of human behavior. Yes, they had discovered industrial techniques for killing, but what were their ambitions for humanity? Let's fight our way back to the 18th century. Let's fight our way back to the 16th century. Let's fight our way back to the 1st century, if the men will let us. It is very quiet and hard to understand that I am any nearer the war. The nurses here say that word have been sent to have 1 million beds ready for the big push in the spring. Doesn't it seem awful? How little we can see into the future. They say they're sending every last available man over very soon. Everyone seems to think there's going to be an awful fight. It makes me shudder. Think of what a terrible slaughter it means.
Mother, in one place, the two lines were so close together that you had to stand all night with a revolver in one hand and a Mills bomb in the other. Fritz did try to come over a number of times, but what with bombs, rifle grenades, and rifle bullets, they never got very far. It's one of those clear, cool, glorious days where if you look heavenward, there's nothing to remind you there's a war on at all except for a few small puffs of anti-aircraft shells. But you can't keep looking heavenward all day. Your gaze comes down to earth again, and it all comes back with a big thud. Here I am, again, back in the midst of the Flanders mud.
My darling little son, Rick, I know with what grief you will get the telegram. These are terrible times, and I suppose we cannot expect to escape sacrifice. Our family circle is growing smaller, but we must ever bring it closer together with love and helpfulness one to another. Take care of yourself, dear, and write often. We've had some warm weather here, and in raking off the borders, I find lots of perennials sticking their heads up and full of promise. The spring always makes me sure of the resurrection and that nothing is lost.
Please be seated. University School was established in 1906, and one of its founders was Captain Rupert Valentine Harvey. The space now occupied by the Science Building used to be Harvey House, a border residence named after Captain Harvey. One of our present residences now bears his name. In the year 1914, one assumes that the school year finished in June and that preparations were being made for the September opening of the school year 1914-15. In August 1914, a major world event occurred with the declaration of World War I, later ironically named the War to End All Wars. The names you will shortly hear and see are the names of students from our school who were killed in World Wars I and II. Captain Harvey was one of the many who did not return. In August 1914, Captain Harvey, like many others, enlisted immediately and joined his regiment, which later experienced action at the front in France. He was wounded in action, became a prisoner of war, and died of wounds in 1917, and is buried in a military cemetery in Europe. Before leaving Victoria, Captain Harvey wrote a letter to the boys of University School so that he could explain his absence at the September 1914 opening of the school year. This letter, written 100 years ago, still has great meaning, and it has been our school tradition to read it on Remembrance Day. The letter is dated August 21st, 1914. My dear boys, I cannot tell you how sorry I am to go away without seeing you all again. I need not tell you that my heart is all with the old school, now as always, and I can hardly realize that school is going to reopen while I am far away. I am sure you will all understand that my reason for offering to go to the front was not to win honor for myself, but because I felt it was the only honorable thing to do, whether I was sent to the war or not. If I go to join the troops who are fighting under our flag, I shall feel that I have all your best wishes and prayers, and that while I am away, every boy will do his best in school or out, at games or at drill, to keep the honor of the school as high and untarnished as we others are trying to keep the honor of our country. Always your affectionate friend, R.V. Harvey.
University School, Senior School, 1914 to 1918. E. D. Ashcroft. L. E. Ashcroft. G. E. Ambery. V. R. Bennett. W. J. Bowser. A. D. Booth. R. Buscombe. R. Bell Irving. D. P. Bell Irving. A. H. Bostock. C. de Bernier. C. Baxter. P. Beanlands. C. N. Collison. E. Cartwright. R. W. L. Crawford. C. J. Creary. R. H. Creary. R. Chipman. K. Corson. S. J. Corson. W. A. Campbell. E. E. Clayton. J. D. Craig. E. Christie. A. R. Dobson. S. L. Dawson. C. D. Douglas. H. W. Dobby. J. Dunsmuir. R. H. Finlayson. G. Fison. C. W. Gordon. R. V. Harvey. A. F. Hudson. K. C. Hart. C. Dine Harrison. J. D. C. Holland. A. W. Ines. H.A.B. Jackson, W.L. McDonald, C.C. Montgomery, F.D. Pemberton, W. Pemberton, R.E. Price Jones, W.J. Pierce, J. DePonsier, S.N. Rich, E.A. Rand, C. Spencer, W. F. Smith, J. Starton, B. E. Scott, W. H. Snyder, J. G. Toutlow, T. G. Thomas, W. J. Taylor, V. G. Tupper, G. A. Trory, B. Worsfold, J. Wilson, A. Wilbraham Taylor, T. L. Young. University School, 1939 to 1945. W. A. Albert, E. B. Allen, P. K. Allen, J. Ardes Johnston, J. L. Atkinson, R. H. M. Borden, J. R. Brown, J. T. Bryden, A. M. Bull, J. H. Calvert, K. C. Campbell, D. H. J. Chapman, B. C. Clark, E. C. Clark, J. E. Diamond, E. S. Ditmars, L. P. Douglas, R. J. Hopkins, R. W. Horsfield, R. J. Huff, J. D. Hunter, P. W. Janneret, W. M. D. Kerfoot, J. G. Mackenzie, H. H. Mackenzie, J. G. Macked, J. D. Mercer, J. W. Moore, R. F. W. Nixon, C. J. W. Norman, A. J. Pinhorn, G. F. Parker, E. H. Robinson, I. M. Sutherland Brown, W. Scott, B. C. Smith, J. C. Thorne, R. M. Wallace, F. P. Winslow, D. G. Worthington, J. R. Worthington.
St. Michael's School, 1939 to 1945. Maurice Beedham, Brian Carmichael, Murray Clough, James Cornwall, Alan Crane, Edward Curtis, Arthur Deacon, Robert Field, Jack Fulton, Ian Gillespie, Tom Golby, Francis Gregory, Jack Grogan, John Hurtley, Richard Idens, Theodore Izzard, Paul Jeanret, Vincent Knox, Jock Mayer, Sarsfield Martin, Alan Mayhew, Trevor Pidcock, Anthony Playfair, Patrick Richardson, George Rodney, Stephen Rose, Michael Simons, Jack Twig, Edward Williams.
If you are able, please rise and remain standing for the remainder of the ceremony. they shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. This year again, our prayer remains the same. Please join me. Beloved God, today we remember the dead. When we recall their moments of courage, may we employ that courage in our own lives. When we ponder their willingness to sacrifice, may we find the resolve to devote ourselves to larger causes. When we recollect the values that they held dear, may we recommit ourselves to what we should hold dear. And God, even as we leave this gathering, may we not leave behind its meaning, so that when we listen to the news, to the words of our leaders, to the pleas of our sisters and brothers throughout the world, we may play our part, serving the needs of others, being honest about who we are and what we need to change, respecting that there are many ways to see our world and its challenges, and ultimately finding the courage to act. All this, God, so that the promise of this world can be realized, a place where swords are beaten into plowshares, a place where everyone's needs are met and we have no one to fear. This is your vision. This is our prayer. Amen. We've been in here for a while now. The subject matter has been heavy. A long weekend awaits. There's no doubt that most of us are done with sitting and we want to move. Which brings us back to the letter with which we open this ceremony. Remember how the soldier wrote that he shouldn't think longingly of home in the moment before engaging in battle? He said, "It is hard enough sitting, waiting. We may move at any minute." In his context, imagine what it meant to sit and wait. Imagine what it would have meant when the order came to move. How different our world from his. How fortunate you and I. All the greater our responsibility to remember and to act. Writing not necessarily in words, but through our actions, an ever clearer statement about who we want to be. Writing through our lives an even deeper commitment, declaration of our personal commitment to a more peaceable and just world. When it comes to living that kind of life, may we be done with sitting. It is time to move. Go in peace.